Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ileana Soto. I am the corporate immigration attorney here at Union Law Group. We are the corporate division by ULG, and you can find me at the San Isidro office here in California. If you own a business, if you have entrepreneur abilities and would like to start a business here in the United States, you can start with the E-2 visa. The E-2 visa has many options for it. I have a few questions that I've received very commonly from people who are interested in the visa. So I'll go ahead and go through them and see if we have any other questions from people watching. And if we do have time at the end, I can go ahead and go through them. For now, I'll start with the questions that we have and go from there. So one of the questions that we get very often is what kind of companies can qualify to be an E-2 visa company? So an E-2 visa company has to be one that is active and operating. This basically means that the company can't just be passive. It needs to have some kind of operation that is going on while the company is operating a business. For example, if you have an undeveloped land that you've been investing money in, if the land hasn't been developed, if you're not using it for something specific in directing, it won't work. The same goes for stocks. If you don't have any intent to direct the stocks or bonds that you have invested in, that won't work for purposes of the E-2 visa. Another question that I get a lot is how much do I have to invest to be able to qualify for an E-2 visa? The E-2 visa doesn't necessarily have a minimum amount. The immigration department doesn't necessarily set a standard of this is how much you have to invest into your company to qualify. What they do is they use the term substantial investment. And essentially what that means is that the investment has to be proportional to the value of the business, the value of getting started with the business. It also needs to be matching what it takes to operate the business. If the business hasn't yet started and you are barely getting started in creating the business and getting things started before actually operating, you give a sense of what you believe the business will actually be worth. If you are, for example, using a transportation company, to operate a transportation company, you might need vehicles, you might need the trailers, you'll need the semi-trucks, and so that equipment can be used as an investment. It doesn't necessarily have to be a monetary investment. It can be equipment, it can be the physical location that you might have for your business if you have an office that you are going to be renting. Money itself will be something that will be looked at, as well as any other intangible property that may be directed with the business. The other thing that I often see people asking me is what are some of the requirements that you need to have that cannot be excluded from being able to get an E-2 visa. Those requirements are essentially that your entry has to be temporary. You have to be here with the purpose of directing and investing in your business to develop the business, but that the stay is temporary while you do that. You can go in and out with a visa, but your stay in the United States, if you choose to live here while your visa is active, means that eventually when your visa is expired or when you no longer are renewing it, you are going to return to your home country. Another necessary requirement for the E-2 visa is that you need to have a nationality with a country that has a treaty with the United States. So this essentially means that the United States has a treaty of commerce with your country and you have the nationality of that same country. So for example, with Mexico, we have what was previously known as the Nafta Agreement. It was renewed as the MCUSA agreement, and it basically allows the people from Mexico to be able to qualify for the E-2 visa because that treaty is still active. It's still it has been renewed between the U.S. and Mexico, and so it can be used as a qualifying. The Department of State has a list of the countries that have the treaty of the treaties with the United States, and it lets you know whether you can qualify for an E1 or an E2. E2 is what we're discussing today. E1 would be something different. But as long as the list shows that your country has a treaty with the U.S. and is able to qualify you for an E2, you can try and see if you meet the other requirements to be able to apply for the E2. The investment has to either be already actively investing, or if it's something that you are investing for the future because you are in the process of creating the business, it has to be, the investment would be what you're going to be using to actually develop the business from the start. So for example, if your business is a week old because you only just started creating the documents for the business, you're investing money into the bank account of the business, and it will have that money to be used for buying the operating expenses, the inventory that might be used for your business, hiring employees, renting out the space, etc. So as long as you have that investment actively or in the process of investing, it allows you to qualify. So these are the requirements that are basically indispensable. You need to be able to meet those requirements in order to have the E-2 visa. Another question that I often get is whether or not the enterprise has to be bona fide. The bona fide enterprise essentially is that it's real. The company is real. It's not just on paper. It's not just something that you created and never really did anything with it. It has to be a business that you actually are operating in existence. So if you created an LLC and haven't been able to do much with it, it's only on paper, there really isn't any history of what the business has done, that won't work. You need to have something where you are planning to use the business and you're planning to move forward with it, in developing it and in expanding it. Finally, the E-2 visa is valid for 4 years as of now. We use what's called the reciprocity agreement, meaning that the Department of State lets us know how long the e-visas are going to be eligible for. For the E-2 currently, if you apply for it, your initial application, if approved, should be approved for 4 years. This means that you should be able to be coming into the US, out and in, no problem, for the 4 years that you are approved for. After the 4 years, you have the opportunity to renew, or if you are done, then you can always forego renewing the renewal and go back to your country of origin. A very common question I also get is, can the E-2 turn into a green card? And the short answer is yes. The E-2 has a possibility of turning into a green card, but it means that you have to transfer the visa to a green card process. So the E-2 can be renewed indefinitely, and if at one point you decide, I think that I want to try for the green card, you look at the process, which is called the employment-based petition process. And depending on your level of experience, your educational background, etc., you may fall into one of the categories that qualify you to continue to try the employment-based petition. We will go into the employment-based petitions more in a future live, but for now, the short answer is yes, the E-2 does have a path to green card. Finally, one thing that I do want to make clear is that the E-2 visa is very strict with how it looks at people that qualify for the visa in terms of presence here in the United States. If you're currently present in the United States and you may not have some form of visa or lawful status, you may not be able to qualify for the E-2. And this is because when you're applying for the visa, they ask you, what is your current status? If you're outside of the US and you haven't had any status here, or you've had status in the US but you've always maintained it, you have no problem. But if you entered and at some point you lost your legal status, the E-2 visa may not be an option that you can qualify for unless there's an exception such as a waiver, but that's very certain exceptions that you have to meet. So in the end, the E-2, just as a summary, is a visa that can be used for investment, investment in an existing business or in a business that you want to create yourself. If you have any questions about a specific enterprise that you're willing to start working on, or if you have one in mind that already is active in the United States, feel free to call and set up an appointment with me. My name, again, is Ileana Soto. I'm here at the San Isidro office of the Corporate Division by ULG. If you'd like to set up an appointment, our phone number is 619-797-8180, or you can always set up an appointment via email, and our email is hola@unionlawgroup.com. So we will be doing more of these live videos. I will have more information on different types of visas, so if you'd like to continue to monitor our page, we will let you know when the next Facebook Live is. See you soon. I hope that this has been helpful.